Well, there we are. We got to get you an Instagram frame.
There we go.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to
Monday Night Live.
Monday Night Live, the lovely Kate Semmens. And I'm Dean Nixon with TurningLeaf Wellness Center. We are excited to come at you in all the different feeds we've got going on tonight.
It's so fun.
And we are excited to get on to, of course, our topic for tonight. It has been such a great week. There's been some really cool things. We have had such cool changes going on around us in our communities, and so many cool things with the changes that are coming up, and things are opening back up. Life is getting back to normal. The energy is starting to shift. It's super cool, and really starting to see it in a lot in the hope coming back into people's lives.
Yes, and I love. I don't know about you and what's going on in your feed and everything that's going on the media and stuff, but I'm loving the insurgence of really rallying around the people that have just kind of carried us through this pandemic or whatever it's called.
Yes, it is. It is definitely a pandemic, and there's so much support coming on, and those that have really been there on the front line, so to speak, and the reality that we've all been on the front line of this thing. I think that's one of the other things that's been really challenging is the feelings of isolation, not realizing that the isolation is really the front line. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused, is where the front line really is. Yes, we have those that have been sick, and those that are the responders that are there at the hospitals, and those that are dealing with that quote front line. But really the front line is all of you. All of you have been on the front line. All of you have been the ones that have been right at the vanguard, taking the brunt of it all, staying home, staying safe, washing, cleaning, taking care. Those of you that have still been working like us, that have been working through the pandemic, that are showing up to work every day to make sure that the services that are there and that people are taken care of. That truly is a part of the front line, and not to minimize those that have been being the caretakers.
Right, of course not.
But also, it's also important to recognize the value of yourself and what you've been doing.
Yeah, like, I know there's also been a lot of thoughts and things going around. I love that you brought that up, Dean, because it has been difficult. It's been rough, and so it's pretty easy to say, oh gosh, I don't have a six-pack abs at the end of this pandemic, right? Like, I just sat and watched Netflix. I love all the ones that are going around about that. You see the memes, right? My swimsuit after Corona, right? It's like a cute little chubby baby or whatever, like, just so fun. But give yourself lots of grace right now, because I love that you brought that up, Dean. Like, all of us have really stepped up, I think, and tried to love our neighbors and take care of our world, and I think that deserves a giant pat on the back, just to everybody.
100%. And this is that time to really step back and recognize how much it's important for us to be more tender and be more kind, to be more charitable, especially all of these things towards ourselves, but towards others.
Yes.
And again, it's always these worldwide, global, events that really cause us to take pause and to really focus on what matters. And again, so our hat is off to you.
Yes.
So, jumping into tonight's topic, well, one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight is a topic that's near and dear to me. It's one that I like to teach when I have an opportunity to teach the 7 Laws workshop that we do here at Turning Leaf. And one of the 7 laws that is such an important one for us to recognize, and it plays into a lot of what we've just been talking about, and that is the Law of Inertia. The Law of Inertia, and how the Law of Inertia plays itself out in our lives. Now, we know the physical Law of Inertia, right? So can you quote it?
An object in motion will stay in motion until there's a rock or a boulder or a wall in the way.
Fair enough.
Or a ditch.
Or a ditch or something.
Big enough to trap it.
I love it. Perfect. Yes. So the law.
What is the end of it?
Unless it meets a object of equal or
greater force.
Equal or greater force.
That's right.
That will change it. Yes. So the law of inertia on the scientific level that we learned in high school, etc., is true to us emotionally. And there's a lot of things that we don't recognize, that what inertia really is whatever that's being put into motion today is something that we will experience the energy or the results of tomorrow, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that you brought up emotionally, but I would put it out there, Dean, that the law of inertia covers every single aspect of our life. It covers us,
put it out there, mentally,
emotionally, physically, spiritually,
financially,
all of those things, right? So, yeah, like in our day and age right now, we so want everything right now, right? We talk about this a lot too, like just that instant gratification world that we live in. And so when we want something that takes a little bit more cultivation, it can get frustrating, and we oftentimes tend to just like jump ship because we don't have it now, so clearly we're not going to get it, right? Like it's not meant for me.
Right.
When in fact, when you started that law of inertia, and it takes a minute to get that rock rolling, but eventually, and I love in the workshop how with the law of inertia, we present that it is that rock on that big boulder on the edge of the hill, right? And there's like these little teeny tiny boulders up there. Maybe I'm thinking of a different workshop, but it's the same law.
It's the same
It's just
law.
Presented in it's in our goals and manifestation workshop, exactly, that we do it this way. So, but sometimes you got to remove all those little pebbles in order to get that giant rock to roll down the hill.
Yes. To get the energy flowing, there's a lot of different things and that get in the way of that energy that's waiting. And so when we're talking about stored energy or potential energy that we talk about in the goals and intentions workshop, but that is, in order to get that rock rolling, we do have to remove the little things that are in the way. So it really pertains into what's going on now. So a lot of us now are coming out of this quarantine life, so to speak. Quarantine life.
I was going to say, why don't you throw a hashtag on there, Dean?
Hashtag quarantine life. As we come out of it, we have a lot of opportunity ahead of us. And I think that's one of the things that's really important for us to recognize is how opportunity plays its role in our lives. Opportunity is one of the biggest things that come from chaos. Opportunity and chaos are together. Chaos and control are together. So these are the things that really help us progress and to grow when we can start to recognize that the choices that we're going to make today as we come out of this situation, as we make choices about how we want the energy to flow or where we want energy to go, then it starts to really shape how we move ourselves forward. So we think about the things that we're experiencing today. So using that law of inertia, I also like to explain how the law of inertia is also consequences that we're experiencing today.
Yes.
So a lot of the things that we're experiencing today are from the choices that we made prior. Choices from yesterday, choices from
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Choices from years ago.
Exactly, yes.
And a lot of those choices are frustrating, and a lot of us are tired of paying the price, so to speak, for the things that we are still paying the price for. But we can't really change those things. We can't change the energy of the past. Only way to change the energy of the past is by deciding how we want to move that energy forward from today forward.
Right. So then, when that amount of time has lapsed, then we'll be reaping the consequences from our actions today.
Right.
And from the energy today and the decisions and choices we're making. Decisions and choices. I sounded like, what's his name off Pirates of the Caribbean? Johnny Depp. Decisions and choices. Decisions and choices. That we make today, right?
Yep.
Which is, I love that you brought that up as possibility, right? Is that the word that you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, yes. Yeah. Possibility, opportunity. Like that. Oh gosh, if we want to like light Kate up, let's talk about that, right?
Yep.
Like that is so exciting. And yet here you are today thinking like, why don't I have it right now?
Yes. Yes, it is a challenge because we think oftentimes that, well, I've changed a behavior, so I should automatically have the results of changing that behavior right away. For example, with trust. Sometimes we want the trust back from our family members, and we want it when?
right now.
Because in my mind, I've changed direction.
Right.
In my mind, I'm never going to do those things again. In my mind, I'm going
myself to you.
Live differently. Yes. But the reality is that for some people, they have their own hearts, they have their own minds, their own wounds, their own things. And some of those things take time for them to be able to let them go. And so there is a part of this piece that we have to really lean into by using one of the powerful coping skills we're always talking about to help us change the energy of today. So I can try and force things, I can try and make things happen, and that's usually what we do, is we try and force and we try to bluff and blunder, and we get angry and we lash out at other people, and we lash out trying to change the direction of things, thinking that energy is going to change anything. But really, it's not going to change the energy of what happened.
Even when you were just saying it, I'm just like, oh gosh, that energy is so dense and frictiony and just hard.
And we're using that energy to try and change right now. But the reality is, the energy of right now is already here from the past. So whatever I'm doing right now is either going to make the situation worse or it's going to make the situation better. So the only thing I can do is, in order to shift that energy, I have to use this coping skill. And the coping skill is the power of acceptance. And acceptance is that tool that helps us say, okay, this is where I am now, and I understand that it's paying the price for the past. Now I need to make my choices of where I'm going to be going in the future. And the only way that I can do that is accept where I am at the moment.
Yes, I love it. It's beautiful. Shout out to my nephew here for just a second. So Dean, over the weekend, my sister moved across town, and so we were helping her, right? So I got to spend a lot of good quality time with my 15-year-old nephew.
Very cool.
Who, is having to move and didn't really wasn't a part of the decision-making process, and here he is, like, feeling like a little adult, right? Like at 15, how we all felt like, hey, I should have a say in this and all those kinds of things. So I was just checking in with him, like a good aunt / life coach would do. And, I'm just like, hey, Jord, like, let's talk, how are you dealing with all this? We were taking a huge load to the dump, right? And he's like, I've made a decision to feel good about it. He's like my favorite YouTuber. He talks about like these 9 men in old ancient Roman times who really practiced this power of acceptance. And he began to like just talk to me about how the things that they would do in order to be able to really be in the now and just live a really good life. And so he decided to adopt that, which high five, YouTuber. I don't even know who you are, but way to get those young minds thinking about things like this, right? In like a cool, hip way. Like,
absolutely.
Jord is really cool and hip, so of course it's a cool, hip way.
Yeah.
So I was really, really, really proud of him for that. Like, one of the examples that he gave to me was that apparently a Roman emperor heard word that his son had passed away or something, and the whole Rome was in an upheaval, and he was like, yeah, I knew my son was mortal. Like, he just was kind of accepting. I'm sure he had his own grief, right? But it wasn't like this chaotic, crazy thing that experienced him. Anyway, that was kind of a ramble, but the power of acceptance.
Yeah, and accepting that this is where it is. Right. Now what do I get to choose and where I move forward from it?
Right, and bringing in that energy of, like we're always talking about it, how do I want to feel?
Right.
What do I want to be experiencing? Because you can choose to bring in the energy of like, oh my gosh, and everything that you were just talking about, right? The struggle and the manipulation and the control, and I just want to force it to be this way. And of course, I think we always do that out of a place of thinking that will make it better, right? Like, it's not in an effort to make your life miserable. Who wants that? Nobody wants that.
Right.
But we have these tactics that we employ that don't really work for us.
Right.
It just makes it harder.
It does.
Instead of relaxing into acceptance.
There you go.
He's like, is she gonna stop talking?
Just waiting to jump in. But
the floor is yours.
The floor is mine. But it is about acceptance and allowing that space to be what it was.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do now is be that creator we're always talking about. You are a creator. You have the ability to create what's in front of you now. So the choices that you make today forward are the things that create your space or create your world the way you want it to look. We can either make our decisions, as we've talked about in other webisodes and podcasts. You can make those decisions off the fear of being hurt again.
Right.
You can make those decisions off the fear of loss or anger from the past, or any of those types of things.
Reactive because you're uncomfortable right now.
And all in order to try and change the course of the inertia. Instead of allowing that inertia to be a creative energy, we accept it. We say, yes, this is what I've created, and this is what I'm going to do with it. This is where I'm going to go now with that. And that's the biggest part, is oftentimes another piece that plays into this is the letting go of outcomes or letting go of expectations.
Right.
Because that's a part of that reaction stuff that you're talking about. When we're trying to make decisions or guide our lives out of reaction, then we're not creating off of the new, we're creating off of the old energy. But when we let go and we say, I'm going to create with this new energy, I'm going to create what I choose to create and what I want to create, and then I will allow those outcomes to become what they become. And when I get to those, then I will create more from there.
I love it. That is, I guess, where my brain is going right now. That surrender, right, of the expectation is one of those things that we talk about oftentimes about how to experience joy and happiness in the now. Because it's when we have the expectation and it doesn't turn out like we wanted to or thought it should, then that can cause us a lot of pain.
Right.
And so letting go of the expectation and really just throwing out another coping skill that we talk about, which is faith and hope, right? Like, okay, in good faith, I'm going to shift my energy right now. I'm going to make a different choice than I would normally make. Freak, do it as a social experiment, right? Like it's my own life little experiment. I'm going to make a change today, and I'm going to see what that looks like in 2 to 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
And be able to like, oh, wow, look at, with no expectation about what it should look like, right? Like, and that would be kind of the, what is it? When you do a science experiment, what is that called? The free radical, I guess? What, I don't remember. I wasn't very good at science. I'm really good at English, but like,
I think
you know,
free radical might be something different, but I think you're talking about the outcomes and really just that theory and the hypothesis of what you're going to create.
Yes. Like a double-blind study. I think that's what I'm trying to go for.
Okay. All right. So it is a powerful opportunity for us to really create the life that we want to create and create the space that we want to create. But again, the thing that's important is that we're not trying to change the future or create the future out of the fear of the past, but the lessons of the past. So when I can take the lessons of the past, those pieces that I've learned from it, what did I take from that experience? And what do I want to do different? What do I need to do in my life that brings me happiness, that brings me joy, that contributes to the world, that leaves my mark, that leaves my legacy? What are the things that I need to do to create that for myself? And then I create from that space of gratitude. Because when I focus on what I've learned from the past, as painful as it has been for us, I think we've all had painful pasts. But the more that I learn from my experiences, then, and I'm grateful for those experiences, then I take that energy of acceptance, I take that energy of gratitude, I let go of the expectations, and I can really start to chart a course of positive karma, positive energy, and really moving myself forward. Yeah, I love it. And just applying this to what we've all been experiencing so far. I love in the beginning, Dean, you brought up like the trust bit, right? And sometimes we get really frustrated when we feel like our actions have just shown how much people should trust us, right? Yeah.
Like, and so with everything we've just come through with Corona and are still like at the tail end, I know a lot of cities are still where we've been in St. George pretty blessed most of the time, you know, to be able to not be so completely locked down quarantine. So as we as a society and as a world move out of this, it will be really easy to get frustrated with why aren't things moving as quickly, right? Yeah. And why, like, I'm doing my part, and we get really frustrated with that
expectation
exactly.
part. Exactly.
Yeah. But really opening up your mind to the bigger picture of a lot of things that have been going on for our whole planet, and really surrendering to that of like, okay, so I'm going to shift my energy. I'm going to choose to do these things in a positive way, and just accept that it might take a minute, because there were a lot of players involved in what happened over the last 3 months, right? Yeah. Which is every single one of us as a human on this planet. And so just looping that back into that trust piece is, like you were saying, like, if you were struggling because I wasn't trusting you, but it probably has nothing to do with you, right? It's all the history that I've had of learning how to trust people and where I may be at today. Similarly, in your life, in all the experiences that you've had, but especially moving forward in creating what it is that you want and creating that inertia coming out of our social distancing, quarantine, lockdown, right? Like, it'll get there. Just trust and accept without expectation.
Love it. Love it. So we want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Thank you. Again, remember, we've all been on the front line of this thing, really working to get through it, and we want to especially extend a gratitude for those that have put themselves on the front line on the medical side of things, and really honor you. Big shout out to you, and for all those that have really worked so hard to save lives and help us. So thank you as always for tuning in. Thank you for liking and sharing our videos and commenting. As always, we enjoy. So we look forward to seeing you next week on
Monday Night Live.
We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
I'm going up, right?